All right, hi everybody. After yesterday's question time where we kind of did some practice together, you let me know that your GCF was pretty much okay, little things that I fixed here and there. We also did some trinomials, and so what we're going to do today is our factoring trinomial kind of review before we move on with our factoring next week. So, just a reminder, you have written this page down, but if you need to pause it and take your time to write it down, that's fine. I'm going to talk through it semi-quickly here. Remember, factoring a trinomial, okay, just a reminder that when I talk about the values of A, B, and C, okay, A, I'm talking about that coefficient of x squared. Maybe. Okay, if I talk about B, I'm talking about this coefficient, okay? Here, I'll say this here. We'll say of x squared over here. If I talk about C, I'm talking about the constant. Okay, so anytime I mention A, B, and C, remember that's what I'm referring to. Then remember to factor a trinomial. Okay, you want to make your Ma chart where remember A times C is what goes here. Even if the value of A is 1. Okay, then that's on your multiplication side. On your addition side, remember it is the value of B in the middle. Okay, we're finding factors that multiply to A times C and have to add to B. And then down here at the bottom, I kind of put a little hey, don't forget. Okay, that is because hey, don't forget that maybe. I'm trying to see, there we go. Trying to get it to come up on the screen there. Don't forget that the very first thing we learned in factoring was to find the GCF. So we will always look for one to see if there is one. Pause it if you need to write anything down on that page. And then I'm going to unpause and continue. Okay, so here's example number 1. Remember, if I do not have anything in front, the value of A is 1. Okay, as I'm doing these examples, if you want to challenge yourself and pause it, and then unpause it to see how you did, that's fine. I will make the Ma chart. Remember, you do not have to make your Ma chart. Many of you still like to, and that's perfect. Okay, we are multiplying to 1 times 12. Oh, I should rewind and say, what did I forget to do? I forgot to look for a GCF first. But when I look at those terms, x squared, negative 8x, and 12, 8 and 12 have something in common. X squared and x do, but not all three do. So there's not a greatest common factor. Alright, back to what I was saying there. 1 times 12 is 12. Okay, we are adding to the middle term, negative 8. Okay, so when I write down my factors of 12 over here, remember I want to write down what multiplies to 12. 1 times 12... there's 3 times 4. 1 plus 12 is 13. 3 plus 4 is 7. There's 2 times 6. Oh, 2 times 6. 2 plus 6 is a positive 8. But I don't want positive. I want negative 8. So that kind of lets me know I want to use negative 2 times negative 6. Because when I add those together, it's negative 8. Now, if you found those right away, that's perfect. Just because I didn't, that doesn't mean anything. Okay, so remember, I'm going to replace this negative 8x with that negative 2x and negative 6x because I need it to be a like term. So minus 2x minus 6x plus 12. And at this point, most of you are doing pretty good. Go ahead and pause it, and I want you to group them. And out of each group, I want you to take the GCF out. And then I want you to unpause and check and see if you got the same thing I did. Alright, so out of that first group came an x. Out of the second group had to be a negative 6 that came out in order to make it an x minus 2. Then remember your final answer that you're going to write down, x minus 2 and x minus 6. Here is example number 2. Okay, 3y squared plus 7y plus 4. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look to see, is there a greatest common factor? Okay, well, 3, 7, and 4 have nothing in common. So I'm going to say no, there is not a greatest common factor. I am going to do my mod chart, find what multiplies to and what adds to. Hey, I have 3 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Adding to that middle term of 7. Okay, remember, don't forget, I like to go in order. 1 times 12. 2 times 6. 3 times 4. I could make them all negative if I needed to. Okay, right now my winner, 3 times 4 is 7. This problem exactly like that last one, so I want you to pause, replace the 7y here with the 3 and the 4, and then do your grouping and unpause and see if you got the same thing I have. Okay, when I put it in the order of the 3y and then the 4y, here's what I get. You may have also put it in the opposite order. So if you did, you can check yours with what I'm about to put on there now and see if yours matched that one. Alright, so what I just wrote over there off to the side in the red and yellow was if you happen to have switched your 3y and 4y, remember it's not going to matter. Those are the exact same thing. Both of them will lead to the same answer of y plus 1 times 3y plus 4. And remember, order does not matter. Alright, here's example number 3. 6k squared plus 12k minus 18. When you look at all of those numbers, remember first I want to look for a GCF. Okay, all of those numbers, they do have something in common. Okay, those numbers do have a 6 in common. So the first thing we're going to do is take a 6 out of every single number. Okay, so I have a k squared plus a 2k because 12 divided by 6 is 2, minus 3 because 18 divided by 6 is 3. Now when I come over here and I say, hey, what are we going to multiply to and what are we going to add to? I am using the new numbers inside this parentheses, meaning I'm using the 1 that's in front of the k squared and that negative 3. So I am multiplying to negative 3, adding to 2. Okay, numbers that multiply to negative 3 and add to 2. Let's go with negative 1 times positive 3. Okay, remember the only thing that's going to be different here is I'm going to make sure that this 6 follows me on every step, okay? And the only way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to put brackets. You don't have to, but I'm going to put brackets so I keep that 6 separated from my negative 1k and my positive 3k and my minus 3. Go ahead and pause it, finish the question, but don't forget to bring the 6 down with you all the way to the end. Alright, so right there, if you look there in purple, I did my grouping, and I left that 6 on the outside, and then there in blue, I wrote down that final answer with a 6 included. That GCF must follow all the way to the end. Okay, so here is number 4. So 4x to the third y plus 22x squared y squared plus 10xy to the third. I want you to pause right here, and I want you to take out the GCF because all of those terms do have something in common. Okay, when you take out the GCF, there is what you should have, as well as what you should have left over on the inside. Now, on the inside of that parentheses, there are still 3 terms, okay? And within those 3 terms, the middle term has an x and a y, okay? Meaning it has one of each of this x squared and that y squared. Okay, so I can still do this like I did all the other questions for the trinomial. I can still say, hey, what multiplies to 2 times 5, which is 10, and what adds to the middle term, which is 11. I want you to pause and find what multiplies, and then input it in there, and I want you to check yourself and see if you got it the same way I did. Alright, so I had the factors of 1 and 10. Now, I put mine in the order of 1 first and then 10. So I put my 1 first and then I put my 10 next. You could have put the 10 first and then the 1. It does not matter. But notice that both of those terms have the xy, the same as this term right here, having that xy. Okay? Go ahead and on the ones in the bracket, I want you to go ahead and do your grouping. Take out what they have in common and write out your final answer. So go ahead and pause and see if you get what I have here. Alright, you can see there in the red-orange color right here that I took out the GCF out of each of my terms, and then in the green I put the final answer. Remember, even if you switched yours around, it might look different on my red-orange step here, but as long as your final step is the same, then you are perfect. I have one more example for you, and then we are done. Okay, so this 2r to the 4th minus 2r squared minus 30. I want you to pause, and I want you to take out the GCF and see if you have the same thing I do. Alright, so there you go. I had a GCF with a 2 in it. And I am over here making my mock chart because look at those 3 terms. Yes, I realize they look a little different. Okay, but just because I have an r to the 4th and I have an r squared does not mean this problem is any different than it has been. Okay, so just the same as that last one, I want you to go ahead and, there's a 1 in front of that r to the 4th. I want you to find what multiplies to negative 15. And I want you to find what adds to negative 2. And when you're done, I want you to make sure that your middle 2 terms both have that r squared to make them alike. Pause and do that and see if you got the same thing I do. Alright, there are my factors that multiply to negative 15 and add to negative 2. You may have switched your order, but the important thing is they both have that r squared. Finish the question, so go ahead and pause it and then see if you have the same answer I've got. Alright, so look there in purple, that's what I got when I factored out the GCF out of each group. There in red is my final answer. Remember, it does not matter if your purple step here is a little bit different than mine because your original blue numbers were switched, as long as the very end looks the same. That is all I have for today. Tomorrow we will be working on a practice for this, so thank you for tuning in and have a great afternoon.